Hello crafters and welcome back to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. My name is Deepa from Designs by D, and today I'm sharing with you this wildly beautiful card that I made in hopes of getting some warmer summer weather coming our way, because I don't know about you, but in my neck of the woods there's like 30 centimeters of snow outside. So let's go ahead and take a look at the products that we're using today. I am using the Through the Meadow collection by Susan Tierney Cockburn from Spellbinders. And I've got these better press plates here. It's called the Through the Meadow sentiments. These sentiments go perfectly with the dies and the embossing folder from this collection. The embossing folder is called Wildly Beautiful. I'll be using that on the background of my card. And then I've got two of the die sets here. I believe there are 6 of them that create different flowers. This one here I'm showing you is called the Painted Daisy and Ladybug set. And then the smaller set there is called Lavender Mountain Daisy. Now, I wanted to show you those two sets because the Lavender Mountain Daisy is a smaller price point. I think it's around $10 or so. And then the Painted Daisy and Ladybugs is a little bit more. So you have an option to choose things that are a little more expensive if you want what you want, or if you have a budget to stick to, there are ones that are a little cheaper. So the first thing I'm doing, and you're probably watching this like, what is she doing to her embossing folder? I'm taking some VersaFine Clair Fantasia ink. Fantasia. It's a beautiful purpley color. I've got a light purple piece of A2 size cardstock, and all I did was I just added some of that ink from the ink pad to the flat side of the folder. So the folder side that's flat, where you don't have things kind of sticking up. And then I just put it through my die cutting machine to emboss it. And you can see that that purple color just fills up all of the background. And then the foreground that actually gets pushed out and embossed outwards is this beautiful light purple that I have on the cardstock. As you can see, it's easily cleaned up. I use a mix of ink cleaner, stamp cleaner, and some water. And I find that when you add water to the wells of everything and then wipe it up, it gets all that excess ink that's in there. Now, the reason why I use the VersaFine Clair ink is it's very vibrant and sticky, right? It's got that sticky nature to it, so it sticks to your embossing folder really well, meaning it'll stick to your folder really well. And one other thing I wanted to mention with that is you'll notice I swiped it across the folder. Do not do that. Tap it instead, and that way you won't get extra ink in the little grooves and nooks and crannies of the folder. So I did actually do another one of those that came out a little better, which is what I'll use for my card. Now I'm going over these two sets here and what I cut out. If you look at the actual dies, they tell you a number on it. I'll say 3x, 2x, so that means cut it out 3 times or 2 times, and that's how you're going to put the flower together. Now I don't have the original packaging because these are just samples, but you have the packaging and it actually gives you a better idea of what the flower is going to look like in the end, so you get a better idea of not only what to cut but how to shape them, which I'll go over a little later. So first thing I did was I cut everything out of white. So I cut out the 2 petals, or the 2 pieces from one of the daisies from the Painted Daisy and Ladybug set, and then the 2 fronds, and then I cut out 4 of the Lavender Mountain Daisy because I want 2 florals there. So I have 1 large daisy and 2 mountain daisies, and then the leaves. Now these are the little bits that create the center of the flower. I did add ink to paper first and then cut those out. And another trick to that is to add that ink to the top of your cardstock and to the back, so that when you cut it out, when you shape these flowers, they are going to show a little bit of the color behind it. So you want to make sure it's not like a stark white, right? So I took some Marigold Pinkfresh Studio ink and just put that on one side of the paper, the other, and then cut out all those little bits so it's ready to go. You can just use yellow cardstock if you wanted to, but I like to pick and choose the colors that I want specifically. So I usually go with white and then add ink. But as I said, if you have the cardstock colors that you want, just go ahead and use those. Makes it 10 times easier. Now I'm starting to add ink to my die cut pieces here. For that one set of flowers, I used Begonia and Mulberry Blush as my 2 colors. You'll notice I'm turning over these petals, and I'm adding the lighter color ink to both sides, and then I use the darker color ink to just darken up the centers to create a bit of a gradient in the flower. So for this flower, I'm using oranges. I've got Clementine as my lighter color and Persimmon as my darker. Now, again, just if you didn't catch it before, I'm adding ink to both sides of the white cardstock, because when we shape these flowers. You might be able to see some of the back side of the cardstock curl up and things like that, and you don't want it to be white. You want it to be all the color of the flower you want, right? So I've done the two mountain daisies, and I put those to the side in red and orange. Now the little leaves that come along with this, I think it says to cut them out 3 times. Like there's one die that has 3 that you cut out 3 times. So I did that. And now for all of those die cut pieces, I'm using some Spanish moss. And then I also use a little bit of storm to kind of darken up edges here and there. I like using more than one color or more than one tone to create that variation in color, which you see in nature. Not everything is like just one color, right? Everything has like a mix of colors, a gradient from dark to light and things like that. So I find that helps me make these flowers look a little bit more realistic, and that's why I don't usually go for colored cardstock, and I like doing the ink blending because you can get such a variation of colors when you ink blend versus just using one color. Now keep in mind, if you don't want to do this coloring on the, ink blending on the top and the back because you're using white cardstock, maybe grab, for example, this one, use the light purple cardstock and then add the darker ink color on top. Then you still get a variation of color and you don't have to do as much ink blending. So I've gone ahead and used Opulence and what was the color? Hydrangea for this one. And as you notice, again, I use the Hydrangea as the lighter color on the front and back, and then the Opulence to kind of just darken the centers. I thought that this went well with the colors I used on the background that we had embossed at the beginning of this video. And then I guess the red and the orange just kind of bring out the purple. They just look really nice together. They have that warm look, and I really was going for that. Now, another thing that comes in handy is Susan Tierney's Ultimate Toolkit. You get the stylus here that's on the left there, all the little attachments that will give you like a larger stylus ball. There's a medium and a small, and then there's also other tools, which I'll be honest, I don't know how to use all of them. I do recommend, if you really want to learn how to shape your flowers really well, Susan Tierney has amazing videos on this, but this is just a little bit of how I would shape my flowers if you're more of like the novice at the beginner level. And all I'm doing is I'm taking the medium-sized ball and I'm rubbing that flower first in the center to give it a little bit of shape so it kind of pops those petals up a little bit. And then each petal I went over with that stylus. And then there's also one tool on the attachment that you can add to the tool in one, and it's like a pick, but what it does is it adds like striations or lines on your petals. So I kind of use that as well with this daisy, the larger one in particular, because you'll notice when you cut it out through the die there are embossed lines on it too. So I thought that this would kind of help that stand out a little bit more. And you'll notice the difference between the flower that's shaped and the flower that's not. The one that's shaped, it just has a lot more of a realistic feel. It's more flowy. It seems kind of like trivial, like why are we doing this? But it adds a lot to that flower and gives it that beautiful, realistic look. Now for those little stars, those little yellow stars, all we're doing here is I'm just taking the smallest stylus or that pick tool and I'm just sticking it right in the center. Like you could actually just use the tweezers here that come in this kit as well and just push down that star right in the center, and it just creates like a bit of a cup. It cups it so that it can create all of those little bits that go in the center of the daisy. And then I just glue together the two daisies that we originally ink blended in the center, and I'm adding all of these little star cups in the center to create the center of the flower. And I'll follow along with the same process for all of the flowers. I'm not going to show you all of the video footage because it's probably going to get boring, but I used the same method for all of them, and I probably just did less of the striations on the two smaller flowers, the red and the orange flower. So now I'm shaping the leaves, and the leaves are pretty easy. What I like to do for those the more ovaloid leaves is to kind of just run the stylus along it so it curves it one way, and then turn it the other way and curve the tip or the end the other way, so it kind of curves up and then down like leaves can tend to do. And then I just kind of went over the more viney leaf just to kind of curl up the edges and make it look a little realistic. I honestly, for the leaves, don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. As long as you're curling it a bit, it looks great. Now moving on to my sentiment, I've grabbed the Through the Meadow Better Press sentiments here. And I grabbed one that was pretty simple. It has a nice flowy font to it. And I decided I'm just going to pressed this out on the white cardstock and on the same colored cardstock that we did the background. I wasn't sure which one I wanted to use, which one would look better, so I did do both of them, and it's pretty simple. I just used the black ink, the Better Press ink that you can get in the store, and I stamped this up, sorry, not stamped, but I pressed it out twice, and I'm just using the coordinating die to cut these out. Easy sentiments. I love using the Better Press for sentiments. I find it so simple and easy. And keep in mind that this set has dies for all of the sentiments. And the sentiments are pretty nice. Like you have a generic happy birthday. You have a whole bunch of ones that go with, you know, meadows, flowers, growing, all that type of stuff. And then you also have some sentiments that are quotes, which I also like as well and would look really nice on the inside of the card as well. I didn't choose to do that this time, but that's a thought for another card or for yourself if you wanted to do that. So now all I'm doing is assembling this card, and you'll notice that I did cut down that background that we had embossed with the Fantasia ink. You see how vibrant that looks. I wasn't sure at first, but now that I've put the flowers on top of it, it looks really pretty. And now I'm just I've got the flowers kind of off to the left and deciding where to put that sentiment. Keep in mind, those flowers have a lot of depth now because of the shaping process, and I'm also propping them up with foam adhesive. So I love this foam adhesive pack. It's got larger squares and smaller squares. I use a larger square on the larger daisy and the small ones on the small daisies. And I like doing this, especially for flowers, because you're propping up the center of the flower with foam. And it makes it so much easier to just kind of slip those leaves with some glue behind the petals versus gluing the whole flower down flat, right? I find that that's a little trick. It works very well. You've got a ton of depth with the flower. This creates a bit more, and it makes it so easy to slip those leaves in. Now my sentiment is propped up a little bit. Some of it is overlapping that top flower, so I did add some liquid glue to that, and then I added some foam adhesive on the right side where it doesn't overlap the flower to keep the same depth so that it's not kind of on an angle, right? Now all I have to do is grab all those leaf fronds and then just stick them in, and you'll notice that once you do this, it gives it more of that wildflower look. You need those leaves to create the wildflower look. Even though I think this would look good without them, I think the green helps break up all of those colors that are probably more, actually they're not, they're a mix of colors on the spectrum of colors, so they're not that bad, but I feel that the green really ties everything together. And the fact that we use the Spanish moss instead of like a harsh, like a really green really pulls in the yellows from the centers of the daisies as well. So now for a little bit of extra shine, I've got two steps. For the first one, I've grabbed some Pinkfresh Studio Champagne drops. These are the clear drops, so they don't have glitter in them. And I'm just adding them haphazardly in the background there and around the flowers. I always add an odd number, so I added 5 of them, which usually looks the best. And then I'm grabbing some Nouveau Dream drops. So these drops are golden shimmer. And when I put them on, they have like a more of a milky color, but as this dries, it really just has a nice gold shimmer to it, which I thought would just help the little centers of those daisies stand out a little bit. And that's my card for today. So I hope that there are some tips and tricks in this video that you guys have picked up, especially for shaping flowers and creating dimension. Don't forget to check out these products in the shop. They're all available there for you, and there's also a bundle there for this. And I hope that I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you again. Bye.